Hi, I'm Jennifer Janisch, owner of Adored Salon and Adored Signature Hand-Tied Hair Extensions. I'm obsessed with curly hair. I cut it, style it, and extend it, and this podcast is all about my curly girl obsessions that stretch far beyond just curly hair. Hey you, thanks for listening today to the Curly Girls Obsessions podcast. Today, it's me, Jennifer, the owner of Adored Salon, creator of Adored Signature Hand-Tied Hair Extensions, and the speaker on this podcast, the Curly Girls Obsessions, with Jackie. She has been on my team for ever since I opened, since the beginning. We've been together even before that, working side by side, learning this whole curly hair and hair extension thing basically together, because really and truly we did. And so now here we are, really 14 years later, 15 years later.
Yeah.
And Jackie's life, both of our lives have changed drastically. Jackie started with me when my youngest two were little.
And I was 18. Yours were little babies.
Yeah, and now my kids,
18.
my kids are 22, 19, 15, and 14. And yeah, so she saw me when my kids were little and probably wondered how the hell I was in the salon as much as I was in there.
I think now it all makes sense. now I get it, because I want to be here too. Not that I don't love my kids, obviously, but I do. But I do crave my own personal
time
away.
So today we're going to discuss the working mom, mommy guilt, how to keep it organized. You know, we together, I feel like Jackie witnessed a lot of the chaos in my life when my kids were little, and now Jackie's experiencing it herself. And I used to, at that time, do you remember we would stay at that salon? I didn't own my own salon then. We worked in another salon together.
We would do each other's hair. We would just sit there and talk. We would eat our dinner really late. We'd be there till like 11 o'clock sometimes, way past clients being there.
Sometimes even later, because at that time we were doing K-tips and we were blending, my new installs.
So there was some work
piece by piece. Sometimes we were doing that. That was like, oh my gosh, I would never want to go back to that blending. But I did have fun staying there that late. At that time, I would totally sleep long in the morning. If you guys hear that plow, it's like a blizzard here right now in Illinois. So you're hearing snow plows outside. But I like, because I was with my kids all day, I loved that salon time, that friendship that we had, just being out of my house. I would stall it for so long because I wanted to make sure my kids were asleep by the time I got home.
I saw stalling here sometimes, even though you're no longer here with me. And the younger girls are like, "Can we leave? Can we get out of here?" They're like running out the door. I'm like, "Can we just like sit down and
Can we just
talk?" I don't know.
So Jackie and I worked together so many nights for so long. It was just up until 2023 when I stopped working nights, and you're like strictly nights and weekends almost.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it hard for us to be together. But like, there's so much guilt behind it. Well, I feel like what I witness in social media, I'm so glad social media was not around when I was having my kids in home and trying to work, because I feel like you guys see the be all end all moms on social media with what is like, there's like these families with 9 kids and they're all perfectly dressed. And I think it's who we follow because of following like these hair extension businesses who go after influencers. And there's a lot of influencers that live in Utah and have a lot of kids, right? Like, and all their kids look perfect all the time.
Yeah.
And
where do they have the time?
They must have multiple nannies.
Comparison that goes on, but they would never admit that they have oh, we do it all.
And they don't.
Their house is perfect. And it looks like
Perfect.
it came out of a magazine.
In the photos, you don't realize they're renting a house to do that, right? Like it just doesn't all happen. And I think by today's standards, when you have that like comparison game, that it's horrible, right? With social media and what you see, and you're like, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, because that even existed before social media. When my kids were little, I feel like, oh, I should be happy being a stay-at-home mom. And honestly, being a stay-at-home mom is the hardest job in the whole wide world, because you're the only person that's responsible for your mental state, right?
Yeah.
Like you, if you're in a bad mood at home and you come to work, you can laugh with a client and forget about it, right? But if
Right.
you're at home all day and you're in a bad mood, and you're in a bad mood because of, let's just say, your husband, because poor Brad, I was mad at him 99% of the time when I was home. It was like there was nowhere to go to get rid of that, right? So the poor guy would come home and I'd just be like, he wouldn't even know why I was mad anymore, because I had no outlet to just go have fun and laugh a little bit at the salon. And the days I would go to the salon, I was such a happier
But you
person.
worked in your basement. I don't know how you did that. Like,
Oh my
did you
God.
feel like you really even got away? Like, at least I actually get to leave my house. I don't hear the chaos going on. Like, couldn't you just hear all hell breaking loose upstairs while you were doing your client?
So bad.
Like,
Like,
how is it
I
not
would,
so distracting?
I would be, so I had a salon in my basement for, I think it was like 8.5 years. And during that time, my kids were little. Like, it started when Karina was 1, and then like went through till Miley was 2. So whatever that time frame was, maybe Karina was 2, maybe. But regardless, yeah, like
Quite a few years.
there was times I'll never forget coming down. So for instance, one of your kids gets an ear infection in the middle of the night, right? Like, not that they got the ear infection in the middle of the night, but they're up all night. You don't know why, right? And then they get up, they have a raging fever. You're like, great, there goes all my plans for the day. I got to go to the doctor and the pharmacy. And you go to the doctor, they tell you, it's a double ear infection. Now, thankfully, they can just zap over through the internet the prescription. But when my kids were little, you used to have to drive the prescription there, drop it off. Yes. And then you'd have to come back, which meant you'd have to get them all back in the car, right? Or you would sit there with 3 kids or
While they
2
filled
while
it.
they filled it. And that was nice when my car had like, once they put like the video recorder, the VCR things in there, because then I could just put on a movie, give them food. Our car was always destroyed then, and they could watch it. But then it was like, then I'd try to get home, get the antibiotic and then get them down for a nap. And I would try to take a nap before I would have to work. And I would start work like you do now at 4 o'clock. And there was just times that I went down there in my pajamas.
Yeah. The line was so blurred between like
Oh, it was
life
so
and
blurred.
work life.
And my clients, I think my clients loved it, because it was always like comedy hour. Like, what's going to happen next? And if that was the whole scenario that I just painted out with the ear infection, the antibiotics, by the time Brad would get home from work, I would be just enraged, because I'd be trying to, manage my clients. Maybe my mom would take them or come by. It just all depended. And then here, in your pajamas, you're not looking your best, you're not feeling your best. And Brad would dare to open the basement door and ask me how much Motrin to give them.
Right, but if like today, like now with the Zoom stuff and everything, God forbid you like open the door while they're working and start yelling at them in front of their boss or their client that's on the Zoom call with them. Like totally not acceptable.
Right,
But
that you would be getting just the screaming and I could just see it. He would open the door and he would be like, "What time do I give them Motrin? And how much am I giving them?" I'd be like, "Is he stupid? I left a note up there for him. I told him before I came down here, and he's asking me again. Oh my God, I can't stand him." And it was so bad. And sometimes I would have four people with touch-ups on. And then I always had an assistant down there. And all this would be going on. And you'd hear screaming and crying up there. You'd hear, we had two Rottweilers also at the time. It probably sounded like a herd of elephants up there. I cannot even imagine. Or the Rottweilers would be banished to the basement with me snoring and they sound asleep on the leather couches, snoring louder than any grown male while they were all getting their hair colored. But it was fun. It was a distraction.
right.
Could you imagine?
No. couldn't. I couldn't.
But
That's why I don't think I could ever do hair in my basement. I think the time for basement salons has kind of
passed.
passed and sailed, and it's not. I feel like it's not super. I mean, I'm sure it still happens, but I feel like as the beauty industry has evolved, like I feel like there's just so many more complicated services and high-end
Yeah.
services that
Oh,
nobody is offering them in their basement because
no.
no client would show up to
Yeah.
receive a luxury service and want to be in somebody's
Yeah, no.
basement.
Like this was clearly at the time of only root touch-ups, partial highlights, and full foils and haircuts. There was no, I mean, we still don't do perms. There was no perming going on in my basement. There was no hair extensions going on in my basement. It was so basic and I was so fast because I was trying to do as much as I possibly could in the shortest amount of time.
It was a good stepping stone to get you to where like you are now. So what made you want to go back into a salon?
I couldn't wait to get the fuck out. I was just like,
What was the last straw what brought you like what made you really say, okay, like I need to be done in the basement?
It was New Year's Eve and everybody was sick. I was sick. Brad was not sick enough that he couldn't hang out in his garage. But it was New Year's Eve. We're all sitting at the kitchen table. We're all in our pajamas, sniffling, feeling like crap. And my phone rings and it's Andrea. And she's like, "I have an opportunity for you." And I was like, "What opportunity? Anything looks better than this right now with everybody sick." And she's like, tells me the story about the fact of this experienced stylist that worked in their salon for 17 years left a note on the desk on New Year's Eve morning. They walked into it and said she was moving to Florida.
Oh.
And they needed an experienced stylist to come in and take over her clients because her clients were kind of high maintenance and we're not going to settle for someone.
Was she curly certified? So
that's how I ended up going.
Such a big opportunity.
And
So
like,
it was like the perfect little nudge
to do something. I'll never forget. And prior to that, probably 3 months prior to that, Brad was like, "I think you need to go back into a salon setting and get out of this house." I was 100% offended. And I was like, "How could he not want me here? How could he say that? Blah, blah, blah." And like, I'm just telling you guys all the Motrin story. Like, of course, why would he want me there?
Right.
Get out so I could do my own thing.
It was probably good for him too.
Right.
To have to do it without assistance.
Right, without anybody there, but also like good for him to be able to just do his own thing with them. He did not need me micromanaging them. And that was exactly what was going on while I was there. And his probably every move, like, or I'm saying poor Brad. Brad is not poor, but he probably did need me out. But then it was funny. I got off the phone And he was like, well, who was that? I'm like, that was Andrea. And he's like, oh, what did she want? And I told him, and it was like a deer in the headlights. All you would leave us? You would leave us? And I was like, well, didn't you just say that I should go back?
Exactly.
I knew as I was hanging up that phone that that next motion was already in line. Like I knew where I was going. And yeah, and he didn't really like, I'm sure he saw by the look on my face there was not going to be any talking me out of that. And I was going. And I went like, and I loved every second of it.
Yeah, so that was the beginning of all of the evolving.
Yeah, the start of it. And then how many years later so you got married 6 years ago or 5 years ago in October?
It'll be 7 years
This coming.
this coming
So
October. So it's like
six,
a little over 6.
and then you had Sawyer for like you were pregnant 3.5 years in ish, right?
I had Sawyer in 2021 and I got married in 2017. 4 years.
Jackie was like, yeah, I'm pregnant. And I was like, oh my gosh, how are we gonna do this? It'll be
Right.
fine. It'll be fine. Jackie's a worker.
I feel like we just had this conversation the other day. Like, what made you, like, how did you manage to, like, when your kids were so little, that's when they were still really little when you opened the salon. So you went from just working in your basement to working back in a salon again, building up a whole new clientele to,
Still maintaining my
yeah.
I
And then you branched off from there and decided to open your own salon. Like, how did you think that you would be able to
I
do that
didn't
with all those kids? And
I
two
didn't
really little ones.
I
I couldn't, I mean, I feel like your kids were like the age, your two youngest were the age of my two when you opened
I think they
this
were
place.
3 and 4. I think London and Miley were 3 and 4.
So little, but that's still, I just
Well,
not.
I still maintained my home clients all day on Tuesday, and I worked at the salon Wednesday, Thursday, every other Saturday. And then when the second year, so I only worked there 2 years. And the second year, I did like I added an extension. So then it was Wednesday, half day, all day Thursday, supposed to be every other Friday, and then every other Saturday. And quickly it became every Friday.
So it was gradual.
It
Like
was,
you
yeah,
started to
like
work
I started to work
more
more.
and more, and then
Yeah. And then my Tuesday client, Donna Erlob, I was talking to her about a situation and she's like, honestly, I'm surprised that you lasted this long in that salon. She's like, what are you waiting for? Why don't you just open your own salon? And I was like, hmm. And because from owning it in my house, I knew a lot about it, right?
About like running
Running the
the
business or and stuff like that. But it was very like when you're only running it for you and it's totally different than jumping in and managing
when you
people.
started here too, like I don't know that you really expected it to be as big as it was right from the get-go. Like I think you thought you were just coming alone.
Yeah.
And then
it's gonna be me. I'm like, okay, because I can't do curly hair in my basement because remember, like we had to sign all this crazy stuff. And so I knew I needed a physical place if I was leaving that salon. And I knew that the space that we're in still was vacant because I had worked in this space when it was another salon 23 years prior. Yeah, 23. Yeah, 23 years ago. So 23 years prior to opening. So um it just not 23 years prior to, was it? Yeah, because I've been open for 10 years. Regardless, I worked in this space when it was another salon and I knew it had been vacant for 6 years. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go there. I'm going to look in the windows. I'm going to make sure it's still vacant and it was. I was like thinking maybe the salon equipment would be in there. It wasn't. But I knew how that salon was laid out. I'm like, this will be easy.
And then the water lines and everything, like that part was all set up,
But I
right?
still,
Or did you have to?
we still, plumbing was still the biggest expense when we
Really?
moved in here because code changed.
Mm.
And we had to drill through. So the floor in here is 12 inches of concrete between this floor and the basement. And so each shampoo bowl, the drilling was 3,500 a piece. Isn't that like what? The shampoo bowls were there before. Why is
Yeah.
this?
I would
What,
never have thought that
what,
that would have
right?
even been a thing. Like, oh, we just plop some new shampoo bowls in there, some
Right? We'll be
stations,
good. No, what is that?
update it and make it look more modern.
It's like $11,000 later. And that I didn't think, you know, that's the thing is, I think when you really want to do something, be it any big life change, if you think on it too long, you just won't do it. You won't, right? Like if you try to prepare,
Scare
scare yourself
yourself out
out
of
of
it.
it, 100%. Like, and I am one of those people that like, I really go with my gut and I feel, I'm like, okay, if my mind is telling me that this is going to be something, then it's going to work out. I might fall a lot along the way. I might stumble a lot along the way, but you figure it out, right? Like when you had Sawyer, you're probably like, oh my God, how am I ever going to have another one? But you did it. And then you're like, oh, I can handle this. I could do this, right? And it just, well, everything that happens along the way just makes you that much more stronger for the next thing that's going to happen. And things are going to fall apart all the time. We're just now taking over our emails, doing them in-house because we produce the content. And last week I thought I was going to rip all this hair out of my head because I was so stressed out back here trying to figure it out. And even with training and just being like, I just don't want to do this. I don't want to do this, right? But under circumstances, now I'm doing it and I figured it out, right? And the next will be the blog. And then the next will be trying to figure out how to produce this, even with instruction. I'm a little bit nervous about that, I can't lie. But I just think I did not think much about it before I did it. It wasn't like I wanted to always be a salon owner. I always told Brad I did not want to manage a bunch of hairstylists. And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, am I really in charge of this salon? Am I, responsible for bringing in clients, helping mentoring, being there, helping you grow, helping myself grow? How does this all work? But I just keep figuring it out. And I really hope to God that I'm doing the same for you. I was
Yes, you are.
listening to this podcast and it was like discussing this crazy amount of growth that this company had during COVID because everybody was at home on their computers and it was a beauty company. And just not being ready for it, right? And I feel like in the beginning of owning this salon that you're never ready for.
Well, I think if you look back at it too, you like probably did it at the perfect time because you have to obviously like your business starts out small and then it grows and it evolves into something so much bigger. I think that's how most successful businesses are. And you did like the beginning part of it when your kids were so young and it probably still felt really hard and you still had a lot of, mom guilt about being away when they were little. But like now that it's like blossomed and evolved into something so much bigger and you've built other businesses off of it, your kids now are a little bit older and not that, it's still not hard to balance life with your kids and the things they have in their life, but like it does get easier a little bit, right? Like as they get older and become more independent, it frees up more time for you to do it. So probably like if you think about it in hindsight, it all like happened at the perfect time.
I think I was
right?
just eternally exhausted when I was 30. Like your 30s, you don't realize how much energy you have in your in your 30s. And I would say early 40s too. It's like it's just like I could just go endlessly. Like it didn't phase me. Now I hit a brick wall at night. Like, but there again, like my internal clock is getting up also at 5 a.m. So I'm not staying up all night anymore doing stuff. I just do it, I guess,
Slowly
differently.
shifted to
Slowly
being up
shift.
earlier and going
Yes.
to bed earlier.
And my kids are like, that's when my kids seem to come alive is 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, be quiet, shut my bedroom door, and that is the sad thing that is hard about being a working mom is, right, you are taking away your time from your family, but you also need it. But I think you're also in turn, when you do work, you're teaching your kids, even though yours are really young right now, you're teaching them how to be really self-sufficient because there's going to be times where they're going to be like, well, I need you to do this. Okay, well, I'm 20 minutes away. I can't, you're going to have to heat your food up in the microwave by yourself or do something like that. And it's like, it is funny, Karina away at school, like some kids don't even know how to heat up their own food in the microwave because their mom has done it for them all their life or never even used a microwave because the mom has always cooked all the food, right? So I know that's like a little analogy, but in some respects, you're not available to do everything. And I think it's better for your kids in that sense that they can't always rely on you to be there. So they do have to figure it out themselves. I mean, honestly, my mom worked like crazy. I was home a lot by myself. And I think it made things work. But what is hard now is that they're at this age where they spend a lot of time in their rooms or with their friends. And I spend a lot of time with my dog and my two cats. And, like it's changed, now.
I think it also teaches them to like, not just how to do things from an early age and be self-sufficient, but it teaches them, great work ethic and that it shows them that they could do anything that they want to do, especially for like girls, like
Yeah.
for them to see like a working mom who balances work and, is there for them too, to be able to see that and to know that when, they grow up that they can do anything that they put their mind to. I think it does. Not that it doesn't, when you're a stay-at-home mom that you can't still teach your kid that, but I think it shows by example, like,
Yeah, what you're doing. I think too, also showing that your husband is capable of just not taking orders. He's
right.
capable of, and that can sound good or bad, however it is, but you know how it is. Like a lot of the times the moms run the show and they are like, this happens at this time. And it was like, there are certain things that my kids will go to Bradford that they won't come to me for, and vice versa. But I think it's also good showing them like, your dad is capable of taking care of this situation. As such, should be your husband or significant other, whoever that person is, when you get older, so that you can also be separately being Jennifer or Jackie or Ivy or London, whatever it is on your own, you should have someone who has your back too. And if it's not a spouse, it's, I mean, both of us have been super fortunate in the fact that our parents have helped us with our kids tremendously.
Yes.
And then you find that one person to help you that you trust, which I had mine, you now have yours outside of family, because that's also really risky, right? That's a big, scary unknown.
Yeah, terrifying.
We had a lot of conversations about
I
that.
give people massive credit too, who do have two working parents who don't have that type of help. And
Yeah.
then they're having to send their kids to a daycare. I give them mad credit too, just like a stay-at-home mom, because I don't know if I could send my kids to a daycare center.
Yeah, mine did go to, but it was an in-home daycare, and I think she was better with my kids than I was. She did so much with them. She was like a saint. Oh my God, I still like talk to her and just give her mad credit. Like I would walk in there and there'd be like 17 children sleeping on mats and
Mhm.
throughout. And I'm like, how in the hell is this happening at my house? It would be like running around screaming if they weren't in their own beds. And she's like, they just act differently for me.
It's
And
so true.
yeah.
When I hired help outside of my family recently because Justin switched jobs and his job became more demanding and there was travel involved. And I wanted to add on more hours in the salon on top of it. I felt like I was ready to come back an extra night during the week. And so like we took that jump and it was so nerve-wracking. But like now seeing my kids with that sitter, like you were saying, like I do think that sometimes it's like fresh energy. Your kids do act totally different for them than they do with you. And like
And you're
my
like,
kids
see you later.
look forward to it. So when I'm feeling guilty like about leaving them, then the next thing I know, I turn around and they're like asking for the sitter. Like,
don't you love me?
now I can leave. Like, why do I feel so guilty about leaving you? I don't know.
Crying anymore.
Yeah.
Mom, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Right.
Yeah.
Sawyer has started to ask daily, like every time when he wakes up from it, is Jackie coming? Jackie is our sitter, and she has the same name as me. And is Jackie coming today? Where's Jackie? Where's Jackie? He asks daily about Jackie. And I'm like, what about me? I'm not working today. I get to spend time with you, and you just want to see the center. Yeah.
Yeah. I would sometimes I had the freedom with Stacy. This what like they would get up and ask that and it wouldn't be a day for me to work. And I'd be like, yeah, I need to go grocery shopping. Okay, let me call her up and see if you can come over. And I would drop some off.
You're asking for her anyway, so
All right, I'm gonna go grocery shopping. And and she was more than happy to have them there. She was a saint too. God, I was really fortunate with the two of them. Not my first two, because it really wasn't like, well, Karina went to Stacy too, but by the second two, that's when like you're going there pretty much every day.
right. You get more and more comfortable.
More and
with
more
it.
comfortable. And it just becomes easier and easier.
Mhm.
So that's for me and Jackie. I guess we really don't have a lot of mommy guilt.
It's there, but things like that, I feel like to make it makes me feel like at least I'm doing something right. That I'm not leaving the house and they're in tears.
And screaming and God, but like they say, guilt is just such a wasted emotion.
Yeah.
You just it's like, what are you gonna do? Like you still gotta go to work, you gotta pay bills, you gotta,
We are fortunate in this type of industry too. Like when something's not working, you can just switch your hours.
and
Like
people
and
adjust.
people adjust, clients adjust. You might lose one or two, but like it just all like you can totally shift to be there for those important events that matter. And the rest of it is not that it's not important, but you know, it builds character.
Right. Like when your kids start having holiday programs at school.
Yeah,
and
exactly. Like you could be there
Mother's
for
Day
these
tea and
big things
Mhm.
and still be able to be a working mom and have balance.
Yeah, it is. It's a good career for that. It is crazy how awesome our career is for a multitude of things. Like it just changes. You're bored doing one thing, you go learn how to do something else, and boom, you got a whole new career.
For sure.
It just evolves like crazy. And yeah, it's pretty awesome that Jackie and I have been on this road this long together and we get to enjoy each other's company a lot and talk about all these things. And
It's so nice to have you because I feel like you've gone through it all and it's so reassuring to be able to talk to somebody who's already done it and give good advice.
Crazy. This is That's normal. It's just gonna happen. And yeah, it's like, and I hope I don't sound like, oh my God. been there, done that. Like,
No.
I hate that.
No, it's helpful.
I
It's so
always hope
helpful.
that like I'm giving a good dose of information because these times, these are, and I do always say that, like Jackie, these are the hardest times when they are this little, like it is, but you get through it. And here we are every day today, taking time out of the schedule to create this podcast. So our time is up. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Jackie and I, a little bit on mommy guilt or not, and growing your career, changing and becoming the best you possible, I guess, right?
For sure.
Thank you for listening. We love to hear comments. We love to get reviews. If there is a subject that you would like us to talk about, you can email me at jennifer@adoredhairextensions.com and let me know your ideas. You can follow us on social. I'm at Jennifer_Johnson_Janisch. Jackie is
At styling_by_Jackie K.
And the salon, of course, is Adored Salon, all one word. The extension line is adored_signature_hand-tied_hair. And then on TikTok, currently my name, but I'm thinking I'm going to change it, is like Curly Girl, Curly Specialist, or I can't figure out a name for TikTok.
I feel like that's what it is.
It is what it is, but I don't really like it. I feel like it's so generic and so long. I know you don't. I've tried to tag you. You're not on there. Eventually or never. Who knows?
We'll get there one day.
TikTok, the thing that's nice about TikTok, it's easier than Instagram. It's so easy because there's no like, it's just so raw. Like nobody, it just, I don't know. I think it's easier. But anyways, thanks for listening today. We'll see you next time on the Curly Girls Obsessions.